Hi, caregivers. My name is Pat Snyder, and I'm a dementia caregiver educator based in Wake Forest, North Carolina. And I'm affiliated on a volunteer basis with the UNC Cognitive and Memory Disorders Clinic. Also on a volunteer basis with the Lewy Body Dementia Association because my husband had Lewy Body dementia. And I founded, along with Lynette Wilson, the Dementia Caregiver class in Wake Forest, North Carolina, that's been going on since January of 2018. We do a basic series every now and then, every couple of years. We kind of go through this again because we always have new people in the class. And I hope that you have taken the opportunity to watch the Basics 1 lesson by Lynette Wilson called Dementia and the Brain. And I encourage you to do that if you haven't. This is the second lesson in the Dementia Caregiver Basics class. And so I hope that you will benefit. For those of you who have seen Dementia and the Brain, the Basics 1 lesson, this lesson is about what to do with that information. So let's dig in to our attitudes and our approaches that can change our story and our whole family's story on this journey. It is kind of a journey, this dementia caregiving. It's a season of life. It's a time of life, a chapter in our lives. And during that time, as in any other time of our lives, we all kind of know that our attitudes and our approaches can either hinder us or can empower us. I hope you'll learn from this talk some things that will empower you. My long journey through Lewy body dementia with my husband, John, and my many interactions with other dementia caregivers have taught me what a difference our approaches and our attitudes can truly make in our experience of the disease and our whole family's experience of it. Now, when a diagnosis of dementia happens, your sense of control over your life can feel shattered. You've been told a terrible thing, and it will likely take you some time to find your feet again. It certainly took me some time. The sad thing is that some people never find their feet again. Their experience of caregiving reflects that. I don't want any of you who are watching this video to embrace that as inevitable. It doesn't have to be that way. For those of you who are new to the journey, and those of you who may have lost some hope and some heart along the way, I'm hoping this presentation will give you a new way to reframe how you see yourself as a caregiver. For example, even though you must accept the reality of the diagnosis, that doesn't mean it totally controls your life going forward. A reframed acceptance means you now take action to learn all you can about dealing with it. This is your life story. I hope you'll tell yourself, as long as I'm alive, I have choices. The choices I make at this point and moving forward will define in great part my family's experience of the dementia journey. Try saying this. Yes, dementia is now in my story. It's part of my life. But my life, not dementia, is my story. My story unfolds through my actions and my words. What story do you want your children and your grandchildren to tell about you in this season of your life? As primary caregiver, you have much more power than you may realize. My hope for you is that you claim that power. In the LBD community, we call that transforming ourselves from Lewy worriers to Lewy warriors. You have power, much more than you realize. You're not helpless, and this is doable. Now, let's dive into some foundational things that research supports about how you make this more durable. All of them have to do with how we think how we approach things, what our attitudes are as we take action as caregivers. You can take an action and get a very different outcome depending on the attitude that you have. So our attitude and our approach matter. How we think, what we think, how we approach our actions really does matter. In fact, it's foundational. Now, I recently saw a powerful video by Lucy Hone, who had lost her teenage daughter in a horrible car crash. That sudden, devastating loss forced her to learn how to be resilient so she could be there for the rest of her family going forward. This is what she learned. Resilient people get it, that stuff happens. They know that suffering is a part of life. Knowing this stops us from thinking, why me? Resilient people are very good at carefully choosing where they put their attention. They focus on things they can change and somehow accept things they cannot change. This is a vital, learnable skill for resilience. Resilient people don't diminish the negative, but they've worked out a way of choosing into the good. She says, don't lose what you have to what you have lost. Let me say that again. Don't lose what you have to what you have lost. This is an intentional, deliberate effort to tune into what is good in your world. The third secret is to ask yourself, is what I'm doing helping or harming me? Is the way you are thinking helping or harming you? This puts you back into the driver's seat. It gives you more control over your decision making. Now, before we dive into some more specific attitudes to embrace, let's talk about an elephant in the room in almost any household. One of the best kept secrets for a more gentle caregiver journey is forgiveness. It's important for us to forgive past hurts as well as current disappointments. It's also vital to forgive yourself for not doing a perfect job all the time as you care for your loved one. Remember, no one's lining up to take your place as the primary caregiver. That's because it's one of the hardest jobs on earth. So be quick to forgive yourself, to learn from your mistakes, and then move forward. Most of us have someone who's hurt us in some way. It may be the person who just got this diagnosis or someone else. I encourage you to make a decision to forgive these people. Forgiveness is liberating for the person who forgives. The release of anger, resentment, disappointment, judgment, hurt of another person actually frees the person who's carrying those feelings around inside. It takes a lot of energy to carry those heavy emotions with you all the time. Letting them go is like dropping a bag of rocks or allowing a heavy chain to slide off your shoulders. That energy is now available to you for better choices. And with dementia caregiving, you need all the energy you can muster. You already know that. I hope you save your energy to put a laser focus on what you can do, on what is good in your world, and on one of your real enemies, stress. Now, at the end of this presentation, I list for you a YouTube video that I made on forgiveness, and I hope you will take advantage of looking at that at some point in time. So, once you decide this is actually doable, and that you're going to practice forgiveness. What's next? Choose your overall goals for this journey. And I suggest these. Manage stress levels everywhere you possibly can. This means your stress as well as your loved ones. When you take action to lower the emotional temperature in the room, symptoms are going to be more gentle and everyone's life is easier. I hope you will learn the main mantra that I used over and over again in my caregiving journey with John, my husband. And that mantra was, choose the lesser stressor. Whenever you have a couple of choices or 2 or 3 choices, which one is going to generate the least amount of stress? Choose that one. Preserve your loved one's personhood. This means to nurture, love, and support the person with the disease. It means separating in your mind and in your heart behaviors that this disease can create from the essence of the person with the disease. You are their advocate, their protector, their champion. This disease is your enemy. Preserving personhood is your mission. So, your attitude is kind of like the foundation for delivering these goals. As we have learned in almost any situation in life, our attitude is a big factor in how successful we are. In dementia caregiving, our attitude can make a huge difference. So this is what we recommend. I call these the 5 Ps. Be positive, be proactive, be perceptive, be persistent, and personify the disease. Let's briefly discuss each of these. Perhaps the most essential of these attitudes is this one: personify the disease. If you master this one, it is a massive game changer, especially when applied to behavioral issues that can come up in the dementia journey. Personify the disease. To preserve personhood, you must separate the disease from your loved one. Rather than wringing your hands in a fretful way and stressing over why he's behaving like he is, focus on problem solving. To preserve his personhood, I separated John from his disease. I gave the monster a name, Lewy, and that was easy. He had Lewy body dementia, so we named the disease Lewy. I separated Lewy's actions and words from John in my mind and in my heart. That was Lewy speaking. Lewy was a monster and my enemy. I could say that to myself and know that I was correct. John was not at fault. Truth was not being spoken here. A clear enemy was in the room with us, and my job became how to outsmart that enemy. Lewy wanted to devour us both. So don't feed the monster by reacting to it. I shunned Lewy's words or actions. I left the room or redirected the conversation. Love and nurture the person. Outsmart the monster. This gives you emotional distance. So let's talk about emotional distance here for a minute. Emotional distance allows you to think more clearly, to problem solve better, to use the improv acting technique to validate underlying emotions and needs, and then redirect the situation. And I'm going to give you an example of that in a story I'm going to tell in a little bit. It allows you to respond kindly to your loved one, and this preserves personhood. Okay, I want to talk to you, tell you that story about a caregiver that we had named Dana. She was an attractive 45-year-old single lady, and John just kind of had a crush on her. And so he just loved it and just lit up when she came over to help out every now and then. And so one day, Dana was in the kitchen doing some stuff, and I had prepared a little snack or something for John, and I went into the family room, which is at the other end of the house, and I walked in with my tray of goodies, and John's sitting there in the recliner, and he says, "We didn't mean for it to happen." I'm like, "We didn't mean for it to happen?" He said, "Yeah, we didn't mean for it to happen." And I said, "Honey, what's up?" He said, "Well, we're going out west together." And I'm thinking, And I said, "Out west, out west." Oh, I remember when we went out west and we saw the Grand Canyon and we hiked in the Narrows Trail through that river that went through those gorgeous rocks in Zion National Park. And we saw the redwoods and the sequoias. Oh, that was just wonderful. And John said, "Yeah." And it was over. That is improv acting. That is not coming after responding to the threat that was just tossed into the room by the monster Lewy. It's responding to kind of the emotion that's underneath all that, which I assumed with John was kind of a way to escape, a way to get away. And I just didn't take that personally. By that time, some cute young thing was not going to come in and take my stuff. I'd done all that legal stuff I needed to do. The house was in my name, the property, all the stuff that we had, I had taken care of. And so nobody was going to walk away and take away my stuff. So I wasn't threatened that way. I wasn't threatened emotionally anymore. I understood that dementia just changes the way the brain operates and definitely changes things people are going to say when they are struggling with this disease. So I just didn't take it personally. And I knew that the smartest thing I could do was to try to take John to another place of, whoops, I'm feeling bad. I'm going to leave my wife and I need to tell her about it, to out west. And so I took that and used the improv acting technique to just shift the conversation to out west in another context. And I was just reminiscing myself, not asking him to remember, but reminiscing myself about how wonderful our time out west had been together. And he was able to join me there. He got no negative energy from me at all. Now, folks, I was way into the journey, way in. Within the last 2 years of the journey, probably maybe close to the year and a half before John left the earth. And so I had learned a lot in those years, and I knew not to take that personally. I'm hoping you can learn it sooner rather than later, so you'll have less pain that you have to deal with. But anyhow, I was able to just redirect him and get him to go to a happier place. And then as soon as he went there, he did I said, "Oh, okay. Oh, I forgot the spoons. Let me go get the spoons. I'll be right back." And I left the room, kind of decompressed myself, let him reset a little bit. And I went in and I was teasing Dana saying, "Hey, did you realize you two were going to be running out west together?" And she was kind of shocked and we had a laugh over that. So anyhow, that's an example of how you use improv acting to redirect the situation while you are personifying the disease. I wasn't about to feed that monster Louis when he was tossing out a potentially threatening situation at me. I was going to outsmart Louis and love on John. So that's how you can use improv acting as one of your tools. Okay, look at the second little square here where it says use the technique with your grandchildren. It worked beautifully with our grandsons. John and I have 4 grandsons, and he got to meet them all. When this started out was Michael, our oldest grandson, was probably about, I'd say maybe 5-ish, somewhere in there. And we were riding around the beautiful Lake Lure area of North Carolina, just taking in some scenery. And I was driving at that point in time. It was just safer for me to do that. John was in the passenger seat, and young Michael was in the back seat, chattering away like little preschoolers, young elementary students, schoolers can. And it was beginning to get on John's nerves, and he snapped at Michael. And that was my grandbaby he was talking about. That's my baby. That's my first grandbaby. You don't mess with my grandbaby. I'm his nana, and I'm going to protect him. And so before I realized what I was saying, I just popped out and I said, "Oh, Michael, that's that mean old Louis talking to you right now. Your pops would never speak to you like that. Your pops loves you." Now I took a chance, but I looked over at John, and he kind of got quiet and didn't say much of anything. So did I take a bit of a risk there? Yes. It was very much worth it because Michael immediately understood. John kind of got the hint and was able to process it. This was fairly early in our story. And so he was able to process that. And I learned that I could just use this technique going forward. So fast forward a little bit later, and one of my other grandchildren, Nate, came into the kitchen, and he had been in the family room with John, and he was upset because John had kind of snapped at him. And I felt like he was being mean to him. And I was able to use the technique again, where I'm personifying Louis. And I said, "Honey, Nate, sweetheart, leave the room when Pops looks mad or does something mean. That's just that mean old Louis. That's not your Pops. Wait a bit, go back later to see Pop, and he will be okay. And if he's not, then you just come back in and you find me and we'll chat again. But that's not your Pops. Your Pops loves you. That's that mean old Louis. You just ignore, you shun him and just leave and walk away." Now, all the boys seemed to accept it. All 4 of them got it. And they accepted the Louis explanation as making complete sense to them. And it likely worked because it matched what happened to them. It gave them a sense of empowerment, and they didn't take it personally when Louis would appear and make John appear to be mean. It gave them someone to blame. Personify the disease. This builds trust. It helps everybody who's in the story to cope better, and it gives us all someone to blame. Now, I do want to tell you another story about how I helped John to actually use this Personify the Disease methodology. Early on, shortly after the diagnosis, John and I were sitting together at home, and I can remember saying, "You know, sweetheart, it is what it is. As far as we know, I don't have Lewy body dementia. So would you allow me, while we're walking through this together and I'm not going anywhere, would you allow me would you let me be your second brain? When you're dealing with things that don't make sense or that frighten or bother you in some way, would you just let me tell you, this is Lewy? This is the disease. doing something right now, and let me help you navigate through that. Would you allow me to do that? And he basically said, yeah, he thought that was a good idea. And so early on in our journey, we just adopted and adapted our choices to the understanding that John was over here and Lewy was over here, and we needed to separate those two. And I would let John know when whatever was happening was Lewy messing with his brain. And he said that he would accept that, and it made sense to him. So let me tell you a story about that. One day, this was getting toward the end of the journey, and John was trying to tell me something, and it was just gibberish. It was a word salad. And I looked at his eyes, and I could tell from his eyes that he knew what he wanted to say. He also knew it wasn't coming out the way he wanted it to. And so I just looked straight at him, looked into his eyes, and I said, now, John, Lewy is messing with your brain right now. Lewy's messing with the connection between what you want to say and how your mouth and your tongue are working. And I think if you'll just close your eyes, and he was already lying in bed, if you'll just close your eyes and take a short nap, when you get up, I think you're going to be able to say whatever you want to say. This is just Lewy messing with you. Now, just to make this clear, I also had done my homework about Lewy body dementia, and I knew that Lewy body dementia, the main word is fluctuating cognition. Everything fluctuates with Lewy body dementia. So things are here today, gone tomorrow, here 1 minute and possibly gone the next, here the first part of the day, gone the second part, or vice versa. And so, and they might come back and they might not. I talk about this in the 5 moving parts of Lewy body dementia, which is another video I very much encourage you to watch if Lewy body dementia is your loved one's diagnosis. So I had already explained this to him. We had talked about it a lot. And so I was able to say to him, this is Lewy messing with your brain right now. Why don't you just take a little break, take a little nap? I think you're going to be okay. He woke up, he was fine. He was able to speak. Now, am I guaranteeing this is going to happen all the time with your loved one? Absolutely not. This is an example of when it did work. And all of these techniques that we discuss with you in our class and in our lessons, they're going to work sometimes, and they're not going to work sometimes. That's part of the game that we're in right now. That doesn't mean you shouldn't use them, because guess what? Sometimes they do work. And you get to feel pretty doggone empowered when that happens, and encouraged, and it gives you a boost and a lot of positivity. So that's that. I want you to understand that Lewy is the name I gave. You may be dealing with Lewy body dementia and another kind of dementia, but this technique of personifying the disease can work with just about any form of dementia. Now, I love to tell you those stories because these things happened to us. And the success of them happening likely had to do with the level of trust that had been established over a period of years, along with the habit of blaming Lewy for bad symptoms. John had learned that Lewy came and went. He trusted me to point that out for him, and it seemed to keep his anxiety lower. Personifying Lewy made everything make more sense somehow for all of us, while it protected John from the blame he did not deserve. It enabled me to do a better job of separating the disease from my husband, thereby preserving his personhood, while protecting my own heart from being bruised by some of Lewy's antics. It gave us all someone to blame. So let's talk now about the other 4 things that you might do besides personifying the disease that might help you on the journey and make it a little easier for you. Be positive. Now, you can go in the other direction, but a gentle journey is not found there. Let me be clear. I'm not talking about a denial of reality here. This diagnosis is tough and the enemy is formidable. And that means as caregivers, we need the most effective tools that we can find. Positivity has been researched for years, and it has proven to be a key tool that builds resilience in those who practice it. Negative energy drains us. Positive energy strengthens us. We need all the resilience and strength that we can get for this marathon called caregiving. So I encourage you to embrace the science that says being positive helps. Now, how do we do that? We can neutralize the negative impacts one at a time. So here's the strategy. When you feel consumed by a negative feeling, identify it and acknowledge it. This is self-awareness. Take time to pause and reflect about what is happening to you inside, and then choose to take an action that will neutralize or minimize the impact on you, like this. Let's say I feel sad. So I'm going to call a friend who will listen and make me laugh. Or I'm going to watch an old TV show that makes me laugh. You're using laughter to neutralize the situation. I feel angry. So leave the room. Take 3 slow, deep breaths. Then pray for help in forgiving what happened. I feel anxious. So use lavender oil and a room diffuser. Put on some soft or happy music, or go for a walk to calm yourself. The rule of thumb is to choose to take an action toward the opposite emotion. So you're trying to do the opposite of whatever that emotion is that you're working with. By the way, walking among green leafy trees, a research study not too long ago showed that is sometimes more effective than antidepressants in dealing with depression. I'm not sure about the anxiety part, but I would assume that it would help with that as well. Okay, we've got Personify the Disease and Be Positive. Okay, the third one we're going to look at is Be Proactive. Next, it's vital to have a proactive attitude and approach to problem solving. Be proactive instead of reactive. Rather than reacting as things unfold, try to anticipate issues by educating yourself. You can do things like joining a support group or going online and staying ahead of things in a proactive way. If you're likely to need certain resources or tools in your home, find what's available where you live and how to access it. These are proactive choices. So it's important to do your homework. As a caregiver, learn what you need to know. You can do that by being a part of a support group. You can do that by watching videos like mine, and there are others on the internet that are quite good. Just learn about the disease as much as you can and what tends to work best in managing that disease, both medically and the part that you do at home. Do that homework so you can ask vitally important pivotal questions when you are with doctors. Things like, could we try and name another med for that symptom? Or could this be another form of dementia? Being proactive also means being willing to speak up when you know something is not right. You are your loved one's advocate, their voice. Share what you're learning with others, especially medical professionals who may not be as familiar as you would hope about your loved one's form of dementia. And folks, I can guarantee you, if you're dealing with Lewy body dementia, there are a vast majority of medical professionals are not familiar with how to manage that disease properly. I suggest that you check out information on the Lewy Body Dementia Association website, order some of their free materials, and get yourself quickly educated, because even neurologists, even the specialists that you would assume know what to do, often do not. And I know that based on hundreds of conversations with caregivers all around the country. Use your team that you are creating to support you and your loved one in this journey. Ask others for help. This is not a solo sport. It takes a team, and you are the coach of that team. Now, here are some actions that will empower you. Learn about specific dementia symptoms. Learn about treatments and what to avoid for dementia patients, what to avoid, especially for Lewy body dementia patients. What to avoid can be more important to learn about than what to take. So that is a big issue when you're dealing with the brain and the impact that some medications can have on the brain, especially a brain that is battling dementia. Learn about non-drug interventions. That's the stuff we do at home all the time. The stuff that involves various therapists like speech, occupational, physical therapy, things like that. There's a lot of stuff out there that can help you with the symptoms of this disease and help your loved one have a much more fulfilling and positive experience of the disease. You need to learn about triggers that affect the disease experience. What are the things that make it worse? What are the things that make it better? These are triggers. Find the right doctor who knows how to best treat it. I have several videos on this. And the doctor who listens to you. So there are two parts to that: a doctor who listens and respects, and a doctor who knows what to do or is willing to actually learn from you and respect what you're learning. Build your care team with you as the coach of that team. You decide who gets to play in this game, and that includes the doctor. If you have a doctor who's not listening to you, who's not respecting you, who's not doing some of the common things for your loved one's form of dementia that you're hearing about as you're joining support groups, and you're finding out, oh, there are some things some people are getting. My doctor's not providing that, or my doctor won't even let me be in the room. If you're dealing with things like that, or my doctor's in the room about 10 minutes and then he's or she's out of there. That's not what you need. You need to find another help. And the easiest way to do that is ask your primary doctor to make a referral for a second opinion. Find out from your team members who's good in a relatively close area to you, who's good at managing this kind of dementia. Ask for that referral through your primary doctor, and then just don't go back to the specialist who's not been listening or who is doing things, or basically some of them just do nothing. They're very fatalistic in their approach. You do not want that for your loved one with dementia. You want to have a doctor who knows what they're doing and who's respectful of you. Connect with other caregivers, family members, neighbors, as well as professionals who are part of your care team to help you in this journey. Remember, this is a team sport. Don't try to do it alone. Have you noticed I'm repeating some things? Okay, we've talked about personifying the disease. We talked about being positive, being proactive. Now we're going to talk about being perceptive. Being perceptive about what is happening around you is so important. Ask others that you trust to help you in your observations as you discern not only what is happening, but which things are most important to address. There are several areas where being perceptive can have a huge positive impact. Add a counselor to your team to address the emotional impact on your family. A counselor can help you with things like coping skills in the day-to-day of dementia caregiving, communication issues, which are so important. And if you can get in there early, like we did with a wonderful counselor, and a counselor doesn't have to be a specialist in dementia caregiving. They just have to be a really good counselor. If you get in there early, any kind of communication issues that were there before, you got this diagnosis can be addressed gently and professionally by someone who really knows what they're doing, and it can make all the difference. If you read my book, Treasures in the Darkness, almost half my book is talking about what our counselor taught John and taught me. And I got to tell you this. John said that our counselor, Dr. Terry Ledford, had as big or bigger impact on him or helped him as much or more than Dr. Coffer at Chapel Hill. And I'm like, Dr. Coffer was fantastic. What do you mean? And he said, Dr. Ledford gave me clarity. Clarity in the middle of the dementia journey. That's a wow. So learning about communication issues, relationship dynamics, forgiveness of past hurts, grief issues that are going to come up, how to cope with these things, how to manage these things. This is a big, big deal. So being perceptive about that and then seeking out a counselor who can help you and maybe your loved one, if you're at the right stage of the disease, can make a huge difference. John and I started going together, and as the disease progressed, eventually he couldn't go, and I continued to go after John passed away in just terms of processing grief issues. And I was leaving the area where we had lived for 40 years, and I was going to go toward family, and just helping me to process all those layers of things that you have to go through. The other thing I want to say about this is that there is a new tendency, a trend in counselors for short-term, you just have 6 sessions and, we got you. You're good. No, not for this. You want to find a counselor who may be more of an old school, or a counselor who is alert and adept at using the proper codes to be able to let your insurance continue to pay for this and help you manage and be able to go through the various stages. We were very blessed to have a counselor. I asked him early on, are we going to run out of the ability to come, because we won't have any more insurance? He said, you let me take care of that. And I'm sure what he was doing was using proper codes. And this was not an unethical practice, because there are so many layers of issues when you are going through this journey together as a couple or with a parent-child relationship, that there's a lot going on. And so there's plenty of things they can put in those insurance codes, and they can define what the issue is that's being addressed right then, that they should be able to be with you through your journey. So you want a counselor who's got that savvy and heart to help you through the whole thing. Okay, you need to be perceptive about being sensitive to the symptoms of your loved one. You may want to record the changes in their physical, psychological, and behavioral symptoms as you go along. Report these to the doctor and work together with the doctor to find solutions. You need to be perceptive and identify specific triggers that affect the disease experience. Things like multiple people speaking in the room at one time, a lot of noise, forgetting to explain what you're about to do before you begin to do it. And the person is shocked and overwhelmed. It acts as a trigger, and it can create some bad scenes, some agitation, even aggression. A trigger can be too much change from their routine. It can be loud voices. It can be the wrong lighting. It can be rushing too much. It can be having too many choices. Like, what are you going to wear today? Okay, why don't you pick out something in your closet? We're going to go to this meeting. No, go to the closet and you pick out two things and you hold them up to your loved one and say, would you rather wear the blue one or the green one? Give them simple choices. If that is all just too hard, then you choose for them. Hey, look, this will look good on you today. And you lay out the one thing that they don't have to think about it. Because remember, the brain is gradually over time, it's actually losing volume. It's shrinking. Their ability to be able to do what they used to do just isn't there anymore. They're not doing this on purpose. They may show aggravation and agitation, but it's probably really about the disease and the frustration with themselves, but it looks like it's coming against you. So be perceptive about what is going on. And then remember, personify the disease. And if you see some bad behavior, separate that disease and figure out how you can love and support your loved one. Okay, we've had personify the disease, be positive, be proactive, be perceptive, and now be persistent. Persistence is the opposite of being passive. You stick with your plan, you don't give up, you don't take no for an answer sometimes when you're advocating for your loved one. It is a daily choice to be positive, proactive, perceptive, and to personify that disease. Be persistent about taking breaks too. Your approach and your attitude determines your experience on this journey. Your experience of the disease. No one does this job perfectly. It's too hard, and we're all human. Remembering to forgive ourselves and others, and to be our own best friend, choosing to be positive, proactive, perceptive, persistent, and to personify the disease, embracing strategies to build resilience. These choices will give us a more gentle and fulfilling journey for this season of our lives. Our attitudes are the foundations upon which we take informed actions as caregivers. Now, following are some links to dig a bit deeper into these topics. And you'll see there that I mentioned the forgiveness video. These are the YouTube channel. There's a forgiveness video. There's one on the power of being positive, on personifying the disease. And for those of you who are dealing with Lewy body dementia, the 5 moving parts of LBD. It's a short video. It's only about a dozen minutes, 12 or 13 minutes. And I describe it in very simple lay language. And it gives you an idea of why this approach is going to be more helpful for you. This link is really hard, but if you want to just Google YouTube, Pat Snyder, or go to YouTube and put in Pat Snyder and then the word dementia, it'll take you straight to my channel. And then you choose up at the top, I think of the page, it will have playlist, and that'll take you straight to almost 70 videos there, and get rid of some of the advertising clutter on the side. And if you want to hear the whole story that Lucy Hone did, it's also a YouTube video called 3 Secrets of Resilient People. The other thing that I referred to in this video is my book, Treasures in the Darkness, where I talk about our story, the first 5.5 years of our journey. And there are about 30 pages of tips in the back. This is especially good for people who are just starting out in the journey to kind of help you. I talk about how I found my feet, and maybe just by hearing my story, that may help you a little bit find yours. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for what you do every day, all the time. It's heroic. Remember, heroes run toward the fire. They stay at the fire. That's what you're doing. And nobody's lining up to do it. So you know you are one. Be gentle with yourself. Forgive yourself. And please take some breaks. Take care. Bye-bye now.